They say that what a man sows, he shall surely reap. And yesterday in the rugged heart of Burkina Faso, the harvest was plentiful. But I'm not talking about yams or maize. I'm talking about a different kind of reaping. Yesterday, the historic soldiers of the Burkina Faso Armed Forces, standing shoulder to shoulder with the VDPs, those brave volunteers who decided their love for the land was greater than their love of the grave, went out into the fields. They went harvesting. And guess what? They came back with a bumper crop. They came back with absolute undeniable victory. Hundreds of those terror guys in the flesh, who think they can terrorize innocent families, were sent on a one-way trip to the bottomless pit of hell. As we speak, they are sitting in the furnace, finally regretting why they ever listened to their so-called bosses in the shadows. They are crying for mercy, but the gates are locked, and the key was melted down by the fire of the Burkinabe resistance. Welcome back to Power and Pulse. We don't just do soft news here. We don't do sugar-coated reports. We give you the raw, unfiltered pulse of a continent that has decided it is done being a victim. Today, we are breaking down this massive victory, the silence of the so-called human rights watchers, and the trap that Amnesty International tried to set. A trap that Burkina Faso just stepped right over. Let's look at the harvest. Hundreds upon hundreds of these terror guys were neutralized. They thought they were invincible. They thought they could sneak through the bush on their motorbikes armed with weapons, but strangely enough, don't look like they were made in a village blacksmith shop. But our military was waiting. The VDPs were waiting. Yesterday was a masterclass in native command. It wasn't just a skirmish, it was a cleansing. These terrorists have spent months unaliving innocent people, burning schools, and trying to tear the fabric of the nation apart. They expect the world to fear them. But when the Burkinabe military showed up, they realized that the lambs that were hunting had suddenly turned into wolves. And here's the thing, the bikes, the weapons, and the piles of ammunition. Our boys brought it all back. I'm not going to show you the more graphic details because I want this video to stay up. I want the message to reach you without the platform sensors getting triggered. But believe me when I say the cleanup was thorough. These guys are now in a place where they will never get mercy again. You cannot decide to pick up arms, destroy the lives of mothers and children, and then expect a hug and a sorry. Not on Ibrahim Traore's watch. Not in a country that has finally remembered its unfettered autonomy. Now, let's talk about Amnesty International. Lately, we've seen a very interesting pattern. These organizations have been manipulating governments in the region, especially what we saw in Nigeria, trying to convince the top brass that they need to forgive these guys. They call it reintegration. The army chief of staff in some places was actually saying we need to show mercy to people who have spent years cutting throats. Can you imagine? Burkina Faso looked at that trap and said, keep your snacks, we aren't hungry. They are saying, since you guys in the West seem so fond of sponsoring these narratives, let us be clear, we are taking away their lives one after another until our soil is cleansed. Because they do not deserve to live among us. You don't get to participate in a genocide and then ask a government of pension. You don't get to destroy the future and then expect the victims to pay for your rehab. Burkina Faso is showing the world that strategic freedom means making your own rules for justice. If the West wants to forgive terrorists, they can invite them to Paris or London for tea. But in the Sahel, the only thing waiting for a terrorist is a lead-flavored goodbye. I have a very serious question. Where is the Human Rights Watch today? Where is their outrage? We all know they have satellites that can see a lizard crawling in the desert. They can track a military truck from miles away. But strangely, These satellites never seem to see the terrorists. They never see the long convoys of motorbikes carrying terrible weapons across the border. They never see the ammunition being delivered. How do these terrorists get these weapons? Who is bringing them? Who is paying for their fuel? Strangely, the satellites only pretentiously see the Burkina Faso military. The moment our boys make a move to defend their land, the watchers suddenly have a 4K resolution. They start writing reports about human rights, violations by the army. Of course, when our soldiers are unaliving your favorite terror groups, you can see that clearly, right? Because you know, and we all know, how this game works. It's an information war designed to keep us paralyzed. They want the army to be too afraid of international law to actually win the war. But Captain Traore has sent a message. The only law that matters right now is the law of survival, the law of national self-rule. Now, let's talk about these terrible weapons. I saw the footage. These aren't old rusty AKs. These are sophisticated tools of death. If these groups are just ragtag insurgents living in the bush, how do they have better logistics than some national armies? Who is the tailor sewing these uniforms? Who is the mechanic maintaining these bikes? The silence from the international community on the source of the terror is deafening. They focus on the effect so they can criticize the government's response. But they never ever talk about the cause. Why? Because if they follow the trail of those bullets, it might lead back to some very fancy offices in Europe. It might lead back to the very people who claim to be our partners. Burkina Faso's victory yesterday wasn't just over the men on the bikes. It was a victory over the system that feeds them. So, by capturing that equipment, the military is gathering the receipts. And one day, those receipts are going to be presented to the world. We cannot talk about yesterday's harvest without talking about the VDPs. These are not professional soldiers. These are farmers, teachers, and shopkeepers. These are fathers who were tired of seeing their daughters abducted. These are sons who were tired of seeing their fathers executed. So, when the call went out for indigenous command, they didn't wait for the UN resolution. They picked up what they had stood on the line. Yesterday, they proved that when a people decide to be free, no amount of foreign-sponsored terror can stop them. They worked hand in hand with the army. No friction, no ego, just one mission: clean the land. This is the nightmare for the people of Amnesty International. They want a weak Africa that relies on peacekeepers who stay for 20 years and never find a single terrorist. They don't want an Africa where people and the army are one, because when we are one, we are unconquerable. I have to laugh when I hear this. Experts talk about Burkina Faso. They say, oh, the military is being too aggressive. They should focus on social programs. How do you have a social program when someone coming to burn your school? How do you have dialogue with a man who has decided his only job is to unalive you? It's like telling a man who is being attacked by a lion that he should try meditation. Burkina Faso has realized that the global police only show up to take photos of the bodies. They don't show up to stop the killer. So, the military decided to become the judge, the jury, and the delivery service that sends these terrorists back to their maker. And the victory yesterday, it's a message to every boss sitting in a safe house in a foreign country. Your employees are failing. Your investment in terror is going up in smoke. The land of Burkina Faso is sacred. It is the land of upright men. For too long, the soil has been soaked with the blood of the innocent. But yesterday, the soil was washed with the sweat of the brave. This isn't about cruelty. This is about national sanitation. You cannot build a house on a foundation of snakes. You have to clear the snakes first. Captain Ibrahim Traore knows that the trap of forgiveness is just a way to let the terrorists regroup. He knows that if you let one demon go, he comes back with 7 more. That's the Bible, by the way. So the policy is simple: total neutralization. The harvest will continue from the forests of the east to the plains of the north. The sickle of justice is swinging, and those who think they can hide behind human rights reports while they sponsor human wrongs are in for a very rude awakening. The harvest was great, but the work is not finished. Yesterday was a victory, but tomorrow is a battle. Burkina Faso has shown the rest of the continent that you don't need to beg for your unfettered rule. You claim it, you fight for it, and you protect it with everything you have. To the soldiers and the VDPs, your brothers and sisters across the continent are watching. Your victory is our victory. Your courage is our fuel. Thank you all for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe for more insightful and educational videos like this one. And until next time, stay blessed.